Hey there, welcome back, my brave friends. Today, we're diving deep into the veins of history to explore one of the most macabre and unsettling medical practices ever known, bloodletting. Grab your favourite blanket and maybe a stress ball, because this tale is going to get a little gory, a lot creepy, and absolutely fascinating. Our journey begins in the ancient world, around 3000 BCE, in Mesopotamia. Imagine a world where the lines between magic, religion, and medicine were as blurred as your vision after a spin on the merry-go-round. People believed that illness was caused by an imbalance of the four humours: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. These humours were thought to affect not just physical health, but also emotions and moods. Depression. They called it melancholia, linked to an excess of black bile. Enter bloodletting, the ancient cure-all. The idea was simple. Too much of a humour. Just let it out. And blood, being the most abundant humour, was the primary target. Picture this: an ancient healer with a sharp blade cutting into the skin to let the blood flow. It was believed that this would release the excess black bile causing melancholia. It's enough to make you shiver, right? Next, we travel to the land of the pharaohs. In Egypt, bloodletting found its way into the hands of priests and healers. The Ebers Papyrus, dating back to 1550 BCE, details the use of bloodletting for various ailments. It was believed that the gods themselves endorsed this practice, feeling blue, or in their case, feeling a bit too much black bile. Let's drain some of that negativity right out of you. The priests used sharp instruments, often made of bronze, to perform the procedure. They believed that by letting blood, they were releasing evil spirits and restoring balance to the body. It's a chilling thought, isn't it? The very act of cutting into the flesh to release blood as a divine remedy. But this wasn't just done on a whim. It was a ritual, a sacred practice that was believed to hold the power of life and death. Now let's sail over to ancient Greece, where the father of modern medicine, Hippocrates, took a stab at this practice, sometimes literally. Hippocrates believed in the balance of the humours and saw bloodletting as a way to restore that balance. It was like tuning an ancient lyre. Too much of one note and the harmony was lost. Hippocrates wasn't just about cutting people open. He advocated for precise and controlled bloodletting. For instance, if someone had a fever, it was believed to be caused by an excess of blood. The cure? Open a vein and let some of that fiery blood out. It's fascinating to think how such practices were grounded in the belief that our bodily fluids governed our health and emotions. And yet, in all its gory detail, it was considered a sophisticated medical practice. Fast forward to the Roman Empire, where Galen, a prominent physician, took bloodletting to new heights. Galen's influence was so profound that his teachings dominated medical practice for over a millennium. For Galen, bloodletting was the answer to almost everything. Got a fever, bleed it out. Headache, open a vein. Feeling down and out? A little cut will do. Galen was meticulous. He didn't just cut any vein, he had specific veins for specific ailments. Imagine a bustling Roman marketplace where amidst the chatter of traders and the clatter of carts, you might find Galen demonstrating his techniques. He used detailed charts to show which veins to cut for different diseases. His methods were a blend of science, observation, and yes, a fair bit of trial and error. And while it sounds barbaric today, it was seen as advanced medicine. As we move into medieval Europe, bloodletting became even more widespread, if you can believe it. The barber surgeon was a common figure. Yes, your friendly neighbourhood barber was also your go-to guy for a good bleeding. Just imagine popping in for a haircut and a quick vein opening. It was a 2-for-1 deal. Barber surgeons used tools like fleams and lancets, but the most unsettling method was the use of leeches. These little bloodsuckers were believed to be especially effective at removing excess blood. And the best part, they were reusable. picture this: a dark, smoky room with shelves lined with jars of leeches waiting for their next meal. The barber surgeon would carefully place a leech on the patient's skin, and the little critter would get to work, drawing blood with a precision that was both fascinating and horrifying. Leeches had a unique charm. They were seen as living tools that could delicately balance the humours. The sight of them wriggling on the skin was unsettling, yet it was a common practice. It's almost like a scene from a horror movie, but for our ancestors, it was just another day at the barber. The Renaissance brought a mix of skepticism and innovation. Andreas Vesalius, a pioneering anatomist, challenged some of Galen's ideas, but bloodletting still held its ground. Even the famous French physician Ambroise Paré, who revolutionized surgery, used bloodletting in his treatments. He did, however, start questioning its effectiveness, hinting at a change in the wind. Vesalius, with his detailed anatomical studies, showed that some of Galen's teachings were based on animal dissections and not human anatomy. This was groundbreaking. Imagine a grand hall filled with scholars debating the merits and dangers of bloodletting. The tension between tradition and innovation was palpable. Paré, on the other hand, was more practical. He used bloodletting, but also experimented with new surgical techniques, often questioning the old ways. This era marked the beginning of a shift, where empirical evidence began to challenge long-held beliefs. In the 18th century, across the Atlantic, in colonial America, bloodletting was still going strong. Benjamin Rush, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence and a prominent physician, was a staunch advocate. He believed it could cure almost anything, including mental illnesses like depression. The more blood you let, the better you'd feel. Or so he thought. Rush was a fervent believer in heroic medicine, which advocated for aggressive treatments. Picture him in a modest clinic, with patients lining up to be bled. He used bloodletting for fevers, inflammation, and even mental health issues. His enthusiasm was contagious, and many followed his lead. But as we know now, more bloodletting didn't necessarily mean better health. It's both fascinating and tragic how the same practice that was believed to heal could also harm. Rush's methods were extreme. He often let out large quantities of blood, believing it was the best way to purge the body of disease. While his intentions were noble, the results were often mixed, and his practices have been criticized in modern times. Nonetheless, his influence was significant, and his belief in bloodletting as a cure-all was a testament to the persistence of ancient medical theories. By the 19th century, however, the practice began to wane. The advent of modern medical science and a better understanding of the human body led to its decline. The final nail in the coffin was the discovery of germs and the development of antiseptic techniques. Suddenly, cutting someone open to cure them seemed, well, a bit counterproductive. Imagine a Victorian hospital with its austere corridors and strict protocols. Doctors like Joseph Lister began promoting antisepsis, drastically reducing infections and changing the landscape of medical practice. Bloodletting, once seen as a universal remedy, started to fall out of favour. It became clear that many of the benefits attributed to bloodletting were either placebo effects or simply due to the body's natural healing processes. Today, bloodletting is mostly a historical curiosity, although it's still used in a few specific medical conditions like hemochromatosis and polycythemia. But for the most part, we've traded our phlegms and leeches for antidepressants and therapy sessions. In modern medical facilities, bloodletting is performed in a controlled and sterile environment, using precise techniques to ensure patient safety. It's a far cry from the days of barber surgeons and leech jars. The understanding of diseases and their treatments has evolved dramatically, rendering many ancient practices obsolete. However, the history of bloodletting remains a fascinating chapter in the story of medicine. So, my friends, the next time you're feeling a bit down, just be glad you don't live in a time where the cure might involve a sharp blade and a lot of blood. History is filled with fascinating and often horrifying practices, and bloodletting is a prime example of how far we've come in understanding and treating our ailments. Stay curious, stay brave, and remember to appreciate the modern marvels of medicine. Until next time, sweet dreams, and don't let the leeches bite.